am happy that we get to do this again this year, 2025. Last year, we started the mental health month, every third Friday of the month. We do it. We had to do a different day of the week, not necessarily Friday. Mostly, I try to we are going to discuss about behavior, and I want to go right into it because we take 40 minutes to 1 hour. So yeah, we'll try to stick to that. And today we are discussing behavior. And when I was introducing mental health, especially 24, individual is able to cope with the stresses of life, relate well with others, be productive in their day-to-day activities, and also contribute positively to their communities. And so one thing that we talked about in that session is that for us to be able to do all those things effectively, for us to be able to have good mental well-being by coping with the stresses of life, relating well with others, and being productive in our day-to-day activities, we need to check on our behaviors, on our feelings, and on our attitude, because those are the basics of good mental health: behavior, feelings, and attitude. And so that's why today I've found it very important for us to talk about behavior. And so I know we've heard of the term behavior before, and I'd love for us to, to talk more about it. Because sometimes I've been following someone, her name is Tiffany Montgomery. Shout out to her. You can check her out. And one thing I've learned through her is that sometimes we think we know the definition of terms, but we don't. So nowadays, every time I'm interested in something, any term, it could be even the term cup, or it could be the term session. Like you'd find me going back to the dictionary and wanting to find out what it really means, because sometimes there's so much that is hidden in the definitions that can help us to better understand things. So I know that term behavior is not here, and so we've heard of it most of the time. But even me, even by the time I was starting my practice, I had not fully understood what behavior is. It's something that I came to continue learning in the process and was able to understand. Okay. And so you can share in the chat box, tell me what you think behavior is. What have you always known behavior to be? Yeah, you can do that. I have my presentation ready. However, last time I tried to upload the presentations when I was starting the session, because the app that I'm using, I have to upload my presentation as I start the session. Normally, that's what happens. But I realized it really interfered with my internet, and actually, I'm contemplating if I'm going to do a re-recording of December edition, because the network was buffering. It was very poor. So today I'm avoiding that. I've tried to look for ways where I can do this before I start the session, but I've realized it's a challenge. So today I don't want to go through that route. So what I can do is maybe I'm going to upload the presentation somewhere, And in the chat box, I am going to share the link, okay? So in case you need the presentation, whatever I'm presenting today, I am going to share the link in the chat box, and you're going to have the presentation with you. Actually, right now, that's when the idea has come. In the description of the Nini, I wish I had earlier uploaded it so that I share the link, but that's something I'll improve on in the next session, and we can be able to do that. So meanwhile, I wish that I would have seen some, some comments on what we think behavior is in the chat box. But meanwhile, let's get right into it. So today we are talking about behavior because we want to understand how behaviors are learned and also how behaviors are changed. And sometimes behavior can be learned, and in the process, whether it's good or bad behavior, in the process you find that there is change. Okay, there is change. So for me, even as I'm telling you, what have you always known behavior to be? For me, I've always said behaviors are actions, okay? Actions, things that you do, people can see, all right? And so in psychology, we call it covert, like something that I can do and other people can see. That's what I've always said behavior is, because as opposed to feelings cannot be seen, they can only be felt. Those ones are our inward state. But for behavior, it's something that can be seen. And then also normally I say it's something that you do from when you wake up to when you lie down, okay? The first thing you do from when you wake up. So whether it's opening the eyes, that's a behavior. Opening the eyes, yawning, that's a behavior. Getting to your phone, unfortunately, that's a behavior, or talking or praying or brushing your teeth, which I'd call personal hygiene, that's a behavior. Taking a bath, that's a behavior. Taking your breakfast, that's a behavior because it's eating, and it's something that we can easily see. So that's what for me I've always defined as behavior. So all the learn that when you wake up, you should open your eyes. How? Why don't we wake up and start, Yes, I'm conscious because sometimes the alarm we can ring and you are conscious, right? But your eyes are still shut. So why don't you continue walking when your eyes are shut? Why is it that when we wake up, or why is it that when the alarm is ringing and you've woken up and you've switched it off, like the first thing you think about doing is maybe, get into your phone and do ABCD or pray? How did you learn that behavior? Okay. And for instance, probably when you were young, you would wake up and you would do that. Maybe you would jump immediately out of bed and go and take a bath or wash your face and brush your teeth, right? And then along the way, how did that behavior change? Okay, so how did you learn that behavior, and also how did you change that behavior? Or even vice versa. Maybe in the past you used to wake up and the first thing you would do is maybe, like I've said, jump out of bed and go do some personal hygiene stuff. And then nowadays, when you wake up, the first thing you do probably is pray, or is make a call, or is get to, you immediately get to the internet and you want to catch up with what is happening, So how did you learn that behavior, and how did it change from the one that you used to know in the past? Okay. So those are some of the things that we need to ask ourselves, and that's why it's important to understand behavior. I am using the basic things, but now it gets more complicated because there are other behaviors that you can learn, and there are other behaviors that can change. For instance, you can learn to start eating junk food, okay? Or you can start eating healthy. Why? Okay, as opposed to how you used to eat in the past. So how did you learn to eat healthy, and how is it a change from what you used to do in the past? what you've normally been doing. Now, there's a quote that we all know that normally say, thoughts become actions, right? And then actions become what? Habit. Then habit become, some will say behavior, some will say personality, some will say every other thing. So our thoughts, what made you to start thinking that I need to be exercising more? Because that's how the learning of behavior starts. What made you to think that I need to start eating healthy? What made you to think I need to stop eating healthy and I need to start eating junks? Or maybe you didn't even think, you just find yourself doing that. Why? People in the past maybe used to be more social, you'd socialize with people, you'd talk to people, you'd keep a company of friends. But as time goes by, you've cut your social circle down. For some, even it's family. And now we need to understand why did it start becoming an action. And very soon, it's going to become part of you. So that's why it's important to understand our behavior, because all these things are affecting our mental well-being. They will affect definitely how you're going to cope with the stresses of life. They will affect how you're going to relate with others. They will affect how you're going to be productive in your day-to-day activities, and they will affect your impact in the society or the community. So what is behavior? I'll start with the definition of APA. Uh, and so we talk about behavior response. It talks about behavior being our response to an external stimuli. Okay, that's the first thing that's the first definition that we would look at as far as behavior is concerned. Okay, it's our response to what? To external stimuli. So sometimes it could be like I've told you, the alarm rang. So what did you do? You woke up. Okay, and maybe your external stimuli would be your mother's voice telling you every day, like now for me, from where I was brought up, like I know that I grew up watching my parents pray first thing in the morning. So even when I wake up, there's just that thing, even if I'm busy, and now our life has gotten busier as days go by. So even if I've jumped out of bed and I've already gotten to the shower or whatever, but I'll do whatever I'm doing as I am starting my day in prayer, because it's my response to how I was brought up or what I was told. Okay. And so that's why some people will say it's your response to an external stimuli. So each of our behavior, they have unique causes, intentions, or consequences. Okay. Why am I doing what I do? What are the intentions behind it? Okay. And then the consequences of me doing what I am doing. Okay. What are the consequences of me taking a shower, or what are the consequences of me not taking a shower? Because when it comes to behavior, even what you are not doing is still a behavior. For instance, not talking is still a behavior, right? If I talk to you and you don't respond, it's still a behavior. So it's important for us to note that. Now, we're going to talk about different forms of behavior. Okay. And the reason as to why I am excited about today's session, it had not clicked in my mind that as we are talking about behavior, it's the month of resolutions, right? People are planning their year. And you'd find that there are many things that we need to consider even as we are planning ourselves. Some of those resolutions that you are putting in place, like I'm going to do this and do that and not do this and not do the other. Have you asked yourself, what's the intention behind it, okay, and what's the consequences of it. What are the consequences, okay? So that's why I'm saying it's nice to understand that today's session is going to help you to sit back and look at your resolution and try to understand these behaviors that these things that I've put down that I am going to do this year. Some of them are behaviors, okay. So are they covert behavior? Are they overt behavior? Are they ethical behaviors? Are they non-ethical behaviors? And how do they impact are they rational or irrational? And some are even unconscious. They will just come up along the way that you did not plan for them. And most of them will be conscious, okay? So, and these behaviors are going to impact your ability to cope with the challenges of life, to relate well with others, to be productive, and to be of help to the community or to the society. Okay, so there are examples of behavior in psychology, and they include overt behaviors, covert behaviors, rational behaviors and irrational behaviors, ethical behaviors, unethical behaviors, conscious and unconscious behavior, as well as many more that we are going to talk about tonight. Now, in psychology, there are many theories that talk about behavior, okay? There are many theories that talk about behavior, and some of them we have heard of them. There is classical conditioning, and there is operant conditioning. I want you to go and check them out. Okay, these are good. They are good theories that can be used to either promote or discourage a certain behavior. Okay, and so these behaviors, these theories, they came about because one of the people who proposed it was Pavlov, and another who came up with the classical conditioning, and B.F. Skinner, who came up with the operant conditioning. And these theories came to help how people could change or shape their behavior through the use of outside stimuli, okay? And one of the examples that is given in this behavior is a dog. A dog is trained to, the way we do the, what is it called? There's a way we do like potty training for humans, right? And also there is a way that people do training for a dog. So they trained a dog that every time they had a bell ring, they would immediately run to actually they would start salivating and then they would immediately run to that place, that kaddish where their food is stored, okay? And so that's how their behavior started being shaped. And so it reached a time, over a period of time, they would no longer need to hear a bell. At a certain time, they would just know, or if they saw a certain person, they would just know it's time. So they'd start salivating and they run to the place where the food is stored. It's the same example that we've ever had about people talking about mentality or attitude, and they talk about a cow, a donkey, whatever you'd want to put in this context, that used to be tied at a certain place, okay? And so it's used to feeding at a certain area. So one time, even after the rope had been untied, because this donkey is used to, or this cow is used to feed at this area, it's untied, but it's used to it, so it's still around the same area that he's used to, okay? And so that's what I'm talking about, the theories. So you can go check out the theories, they're amazing. We're also in the theories, you're also going to meet the importance of punishment to reinforce a behavior, or punishment to discourage a behavior, or rewards to encourage a behavior, okay? So it's the response to an external stimuli, okay? An external stimuli is anything that you can use so that you can condition your behaviors, okay? Anything that you can use, not just your mind. Like me, I've said what my mom taught me when I was young, or what my parents taught me when I was young, their voice is still ringing in my head. So that's what I am calling the external stimuli. The external stimuli could be, if it's a reward, for instance, you're trying to encourage someone to keep up with a certain behavior, there's a reward that you give them, or there is something that you can say to them, which we can call an external stimuli that is going to promote their behavior. That being said, I think I've read that they held that behaviors could be shaped and changed through the use of outside stimuli that came to be associated with certain behaviors in the minds of the test subjects. So they tested maybe dogs and rats and all that. So go read the theories for B.F. Skinner and Pavlov. They are called classical conditioning and operant conditioning, and there are many other behavioral theories. You can just Google them and you're going to find them. Now, behaviors are much complex than that, and they interact with a person's psychological, emotional, and cognitive context. So they are much more complex than just using an external stimuli to promote them. They can also be psychological, emotional, okay, and even cognitive, like I've said, our attitude and all that. So some of the behaviors, some of the examples of our behaviors are, we are going to do them one by one, and I'm going to talk about conscious behavior as the first one. Conscious behavior is the behavior that is intentional and purposeful, okay? Intentional, you know that I want to do this and you've targeted to do it. It happens as a result of conscious thought and decision making, and not out of reflex or habit, okay? So for instance, I am not used to waking up early, okay? I'm not used to waking up early, but to come up with a conscious behavior means, now what I want to achieve by the end of this year, I'll be waking up at 4 a.m. I do ABCD, whether I do exercise or I read a book, and then I prepare my kids for school, and then blah, blah, blah. Conscious behavior. It doesn't come from habit or reflex. Reflex means, just ile yenye watu tunasema inafanyika kwa mshtuko, like you did not plan for it, like yawning. Yawning is a reflex action, right? Or sneezing, you did not plan for it, it has just happened. So it's conscious behavior is not part of that. Conscious behavior is intentional and purposeful. So in your resolutions, ask yourself, how many conscious behaviors do I have? The ones that are not just coming out of them. Unconscious behavior is what happens without our awareness or control, okay? It is, of course, the opposite of conscious behavior. Now, in unconscious behavior, you did not intend or you did not plan for it. And mind you, I want to encourage that in this year, start thinking of how you're going to deal with those unconscious behavior, things that just happened and you did not plan for them, because some of those things are the things that interfere with our mental well-being, okay? For instance, different life challenges, they can bring about unconscious behavior. You start doing something that you did not plan for it, you did not know you even have it in you to do such a thing, but it is because of a certain challenge that you're going through at that moment. So you need to be very cautious of how you deal with unconscious behavior, because it has the tendency of affecting our mental well-being. And then I'll move to rational behavior. Rational behavior is behavior that is based on reason and logic, okay? Based on reason and logic. It's the opposite of emotional or irrational behavior, of course, and I'm going to talk about irrational behavior. So, rational behavior is behavior that is based on logic, on logic and reason, okay? before I did this thing, I thought about it. What are its consequences, and what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages. But I want you to know that for rational behavior, sometimes what can be logical to me might interfere with another person's well-being, and that's one of the challenges we have with our human relationships. Let me tell you, eh? Has taught us that human relationships are not easy. So some of the things that you consider logical, because the other party, it tends to interfere with our relationships with people, and sometimes it can even interfere with your productivity. I want to achieve something, but because I have to do this thing with someone, A, B, C, D, and they are not coming to a point where we are reasoning together, our only logic in what I am doing, they tend to interfere with our relationships. So I found optimal behavior. Now, optimal behavior means that about the best possible outcome. As much as I am being rational, I know that this thing can affect the other person, okay? The people that I relate with, for instance. And so, how can I bring an optimal behavior in, like, so that it can help also to shield my relationships, because people are different. And one thing is that as we are relating with people and they are not seeing things from the same perspective to with, as we are doing, like I've said, it comes to interfere with our relationships. So we need to look for the behavior that will lead to the best possible outcome. Okay, so I want to hear what will go to also for hygiene, right? And so I was given, okay, so that you can have people to behave, because now I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so I was talking about how that kind of a behavior can affect your relationships, okay? And so I found it that it's very, very important for us to, so I was teaching them the importance of us learning to teach it to our children, so that as they grow up, it becomes easier. And like when we are grown ups, and now you have interfered with a lot of your relationships because of something like that, something that we can call it something small like that, a minor issue like bad breath. Okay, and so that could have been, when I'm a grown up and I meet with someone with bad breath, and I'm thinking, wait, didn't you learn how to brush your teeth? Why can't you brush your teeth properly, or why didn't you brush your teeth? In my head, I'm thinking that that's a very logical thing, and everyone should know that, and they should know how to avoid bad breath. but not everyone was exposed to that information. And so I need to look for an optimal behavior instead of looking for ways to go directly to that person and talk about how they're not brushing their teeth properly and telling others how they don't know how to, the way we go see, hey, nani hata hajui kubrush meno poa, nani atamwambia, instead of going to such lengths, why not look for an optimal behavior, something that will help you to come up with the best possible outcome. What are the tricks? Is there something that you can use to throw in comments, or just something that can help the person to know how to improve on their personal hygiene? Yeah, so that's why I thought it's important to about that as far as rational behavior is concerned, for the sake of our relationships, because we need each other in this life. We need each other. And then we go to irrational behavior. Irrational behavior is the opposite of rational behavior. It does not operate with logic. It does not operate with reason. You just do things without thinking. You come to look at it later. So, for example, some people react irrationally in response to a stimuli that they have come to associate with. For instance, if you have a phobia for a certain thing, mostly your response is irrational. Okay, you might be in a meeting and you have a phobia for what? I don't know, a certain insect, and it lands on your desk or on your laptop or on your notebook. And what do? Scream immediately in the middle of a meeting. And now people are like, hey, kumendaje? That is irrational behavior. But sometimes we have some irrational behaviors that are, you did not think through about when you received your salary, how you just went ahead and spent it on God knows what. Okay? Especially like in December, ulitegea salo venye tu iliingia hivi, you immediately booked for a staycation somewhere, or you went and bought something somewhere, and now ndio kinakuramba, unagundua, guy, I acted irrationally. I did not think of the consequences of this action. Or if you thought about the consequences, nowadays we say what? You only live once. Self-care, raha jipe mwenyewe. What else do we say? All those things that we say. So they make you to do irrational stuff, and you have to know how you're going to deal with those irrational behaviors. And then something else, another behaviors that we're going to talk about is overt behavior. I had mentioned it, and I said that these are actions or activities that are openly displayed and readily observable, like they can easily be seen. Okay, e.g. how we walk, e.g. how we talk, how we laugh. Those are behaviors that can easily be seen. But then there are covert behaviors. Covert behaviors, they cannot easily be seen. And sometimes I can say, okay, covert behavior is any behavior that is not obviously apparent to others. It can include things like what? Hiding emotions. It can be like a mama. Someone says something and you don't respond very loudly, but in some way you respond. Inside you click. There's a way we normally click with our tongues. I mean, with our lips closed. Only the person next to you can hear that you clicked, but someone outside there hata hajaona. Or it can be something like murmuring, like I've said, you're talking under your breath. Or it can be, those are what we call covert behaviors. They are, you are sort of covering your behaviors, and they cannot easily be noticeable, unlike overt behaviors. And then we move to another form of behavior, is ethical behavior. Hello, we're in Kenya, and we know the state we are in right now. So ethical behavior refers to actions that are taken based on a personal or shared moral framework, okay? Actions that are taken based on personal or shared moral framework. So, as we were brought up, we were taught somehow by the society what is moral and what is not moral. And last year, when we were talking about self-awareness and we talked about, being able to understand our values, our which other term did we use, and also to understand where we've come from, our intentions, okay? We talked about the values that we were brought up with, and that's what we are talking about. And either this ethical behavior, they can be either through a personal moral framework, yani mimi, like you can say me, I love doing to others what I would like to be done to me. So if I don't want someone to discuss me, I am not going to discuss another person. If I don't want someone to, to do this to me, I'll not do it to another person. That could be this personal, like you came up with that probably of an experience or something that made you to, to make it your personal moral framework. But then there is something else that is called shared moral framework. For instance, there are those societal norms, there are those religious norms, like Christians, like Muslims, Hindus, they have a certain moral framework that they work with. And to them, that's what is considered as ethical. Okay, and then there are others that we share in our communities and in our societies, okay, like what we love joking about other communities, the way they serve their husbands food and how they, they relate with their parents or they relate to the opposite gender. To them, the way they relate with that's their moral framework, and that's what they consider as ethical. So this year, what are some of the ethical behaviors that you put in place? I've told you that as I was preparing this, I had not thought about it, but as I started the session, that's when it hit me that yeah, we are making our resolutions, and these are some of the things that are maybe in your resolutions or in my resolutions. And so those ethical behaviors that we have put in place. So I hope now that there is something like that. And then there is unethical behaviors. These are behaviors that are in moral framework. So that's what we consider, and you're right, that's moral framework. That is what guides us or guides us as citizen in this nation, or as leaders and citizens. So unethical behavior, it means anything that is done away from that, okay, our shared moral framework. That is what we call unethical behavior. Next, learned behavior. I don't want to speak much. Learned behavior is when we are referring to the process of conditioning, like I talked about earlier. So either you do some things to, to promote or to encourage a certain behavior, or to discourage a certain behavior. So that's how learned behavior comes about. So you are taught, like there is a way we were taught even to eat, there's a way we were taught to set the table. Those are some of the things that we can call learned behaviors. There's a way we were taught how to dress, how to, communicate with people. That is learned behaviors. And it can be learned through engagement with a certain stimuli and response to the mechanism that led to the change in thought processes. So for instance, I was taught to eat in a certain way or to cook in a certain way, and then now as I'm growing older, I am learning how to do it differently. And so that is what we are calling a response, like to a stimulus that helps me to change the thought process, or what I thought was right before, and now I am changing. So that is learned behavior. And then there is something we call prosocial behavior. Prosocial behavior is when exploring whether people's behaviors are consistent with well-being of the people around them. So prosocial behavior means whatever I'm doing, how is it affecting the person next to me? Okay, whatever I'm doing, how is it affecting the person next to me? That's what we call prosocial behavior. So we are taught to, and especially prosocial behavior is what helps us to be of help to the community. Okay, to be of help to the community. For instance, if I start practicing not littering, ovyo, like today I was walking somewhere and I had something that I wanted to dispose. Actually, it's here right next to me. It's just that I cannot show you. And let me tell you, it bothered me. And that's around 10 a.m. in the morning. Because everywhere I was walking, I want to dispose this thing, but there is no dustbin. Not to mean that I am the best and I don't litter or whatever, but it's just that most of the time it clicks. Like in my head, I wonder, especially after the floods happened last year, and I was exposed, like I started thinking of how some of the reasons as to why, apart from the failure of, people not doing ABCD to help, prevent floods from happening, but also as a community or as a society, what are some of the things that we do that tend to bring these disasters on us? And so from then I have been very cautious, especially about littering, because those things are the ones that they block our, the drainage systems. And in case it rains heavily, the water cannot flow. Okay, the water cannot flow. Because I remember during the time that the floods were happening, I'd walk to some places where the drainages were working well. Yes, there was a lot of water, but the water was flowing. And I'd look at some of those tunnels. The tunnels are deep, but like it's a lot of water, but luckily it's flowing. And then I'd move to another place and I'd find, yes, there are drainages, but because they have been blocked, whether with polythene bags or whatever, or plastics, bottles, and all those things, now the water is not flowing, and it led to what we saw. So, and I was walking around and I'm thinking, where do I dispose this thing? Why do I dispose this thing? And eventually I didn't find a place because of this side of town that I was in. So I ended up walking with it. Nimefika nao kwa nyumba, like I still have it. I'll now have to dispose it in my house. So that's what we're talking about, prosocial behavior. And maybe now something like that for someone else is what could really motivate them, and they start campaigns and they start community cleaning and they start talking to people about the importance of not littering, and they start these things, and even they start now looking for funding to do ABCD, and eventually you find that such a person is able to contribute positively to their communities, and that helps boost their mental well-being. Okay, so you see how some of these things, they relate with our mental health and our mental health well-being. So that's prosocial behavior. And then we have target behavior. That means you target a certain group of people or a certain whatever, so that you can try to change their behavior to a certain direction. Like what I have talked about, the same example of littering, you target the communities, for instance, or you target the leaders to start doing something that can help sensitize the community on the importance of putting up with with clean environments. That has just reminded me of the other day I was watching the news and I saw a certain community where they are being attacked by monkeys. And one of the things that was being talked about is that probably that could be an effect of trees being cut down, and now the monkeys don't have a place to stay, so they come and start visiting humans and doing them bad. Okay, so you can start a target behavior, which you start targeting, a certain behavior to change it, either to make it extinct or to promote it. Okay, so for example, if you want to phase out what cutting down of trees, you can say that you are doing target behavior. If you want to change, littering, you can say you are using what target behavior, whatever you are doing to promote that. And then we have replacement behaviors, which most of us right now we are very active with. I remember in December, a friend of mine decided to treat me for my birthday. So we went somewhere, and when she was treating me with whatever way she was doing that, the person who was providing that service started talking about, hey, now the year is coming to an end, so next year, he talked about now those last days of 2024. I'm going to do a certain behavior and do it and do it and do it, so that next year when I start, I will not do it anymore. And he gave us an example. So in short, he was trying to say, I want to stop a certain behavior, but right now, because it's December, I cannot stop it. So I'll do it very well, so that as I'm starting the new year, I am not going to have the desire to do that behavior anymore. And I told him, book a session, kindly book a session, because you're lying to yourself. But anyway, I wish him the best. So replacement behavior means actions that replace problematic behavior or habit that you want to remove. And like I've said, I know we're in that time of the year where we are very busy doing that. We are trying to do replacement behavior. Often, instead of quitting one behavior outright, it's easier to replace it with another behavior. Okay, what can I do to compensate for this behavior? Okay, so that it can be easier for me to stop this other behavior completely. Okay, especially if it's an irrational behavior and it's not a pro-social behavior, you have to look for ways to counter that behavior. That has reminded me someone I used to look up to when I was growing up. They used to walk with, those were the days of paper bags, the polythene bags. And so they would walk around with a paper bag for their litter. Anything that they've used during the day that they want to dispose and they don't have somewhere to go dispose, they put it in that bag, and then when they reach at home in the evening, the first thing they do is dispose that. And so I've said that because, for instance, you can start thinking of how can I replace hii tabia yangu ya kurusharusha takataka ovyo ovyo, and so now you start looking for ways to dispose them appropriately. And then there is collective behavior. That's when a large number of people act in an unstructured and unpredictable way. So, but it is still a group or a crowd. That's when you come together and decide to do a certain thing. Yeah, e.g. maandamano, Yeah, so these kind of behaviors, they're good. Sometimes they produce very good results, but sometimes they're not good because for most people, they tend to be spontaneous because they're in a group. So all the ethical behavior they have wanaeka kando, all the rational behaviors they have wanaeka kando, because the group is doing ABCD, I am also going to do ABCD. And there is something that is called the individuation, which means that people often discard their moral and ethical thinking because they can blend in with the crowd and they become unaccountable. That is what we call de-individuation. You've set aside everything that you know to be true and right because the crowd is doing a certain thing, you also join in to do it. And that's very risky So even when we are having collective behaviors, as much as some of them bring change, it's important for us to think about the consequences of some of these things when we do the individuation. For instance, when we have something called mob justice, it can people often do the individuation because you forget your ethical, because everyone has a right to, if they've done something wrong, you're not the judge. Okay, you're not the judge. Let them go, allow them to leave. Okay, but take action. You can take them to a police station or blah blah blah. You don't have the right to take away someone's life. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about voluntary behavior and involuntary behavior. Voluntary behavior is the movement or action that is initiated and controlled by an individual or done without force or coercion. Niwe mwenyewe umejiamulia, you've decided by yourself that I am going to do A, B, C, D. But involuntary behavior is any action that is not within our control. So you end up doing something that you had not intended to do. Okay, you did it either because of the individuation, you did it either because of the circumstances at that time, or you did it because God knows what. So that is what is called involuntary. So, but it's important to know that even in involuntary behavior, mostly we normally have a choice. It's just that we choose to disregard it. So as I conclude this session, I want you to leave with three things in mind. Number one, I want you to go think about what are your behaviors, okay? And it's important for us to note that immediately we start seeing changes in our behavior. For instance, when we are diagnosing maybe depression, we look at consistent change in behavior for 14 days, change in behavior, feelings, and attitude. So normally I know as Sarah, I normally do A, B, C, D. I normally wake up at this time. I normally eat this much or at this time. I normally do blah, blah, blah. But for the past days, I've been doing A, B, C, D, that is opposite of what I'm used to doing, or I've not been doing A, B, C, D. So that's how I have learned my behaviors, and that's why last year we talked about self-awareness. And then now it's easier to know that when there is change in behavior, you can easily monitor that, okay? And then number two, I want you to find out, now that I know these are my behaviors, where did I learn them? And what are the intentions behind some of these behaviors that I am doing, okay? Yeah, including how you eat, how you sleep, how you do the personal hygiene and stuff, like I've talked about it. Why do you do the things you do? Why do you gossip? Why do you talk too much? Why do you talk loudly? Why do you talk with a small voice, with a small tone? Why do you talk quickly? Why do you talk slowly? Why do you walk quickly? Why do you walk slowly? Why do you drink a lot, or you don't drink, or you drink minimally? Why do you socialize a lot? Why don't you socialize? Why do you form relationships the way you do? Why don't you? That's why it's very important for us to take note of our behaviors. Let us understand, where did I learn this behavior? And then lastly, change in behavior. Look at some of your behaviors, because I've said the first step is to know your behaviors. If possible, list them down. And then number two, know where they came from or how did you learn them. And then number three, look out for change in behavior. Why did I change from a certain behavior to this other behavior? It can be from a positive behavior to a negative behavior, or even you change from a negative behavior to a positive behavior. When you know why, you're able either to reinforce the behavior or to discourage it. But when you don't know why, it becomes a challenge. And then also, something I want you to know about changing behavior, now that we are in that season that I've told you about. Change in behavior happens even in 21 days. If you do something consistently for around 21 days, consistently, I meet some people in our older generation and they tell you, me, I got used to waking up at 4 a.m. or I got used to waking up at 5 a.m. At this time, I don't need an alarm, because they did it consistently for a certain period of time, like Kashika, and they were able to do it. Now, if it's a positive behavior that you want to change from a negative behavior to a positive behavior, I give you a challenge. Try to do that behavior consistently for the next 21 days, and you'll start seeing change in behavior. And also, if you have started a negative behavior, continue doing it consistently for the next 21 days, and trust you me, it's going to be permanent, or it's going to be a habit. And to change that kind of behavior, it's going to be very hard. Lastly, in case you're having a hard time understanding your behaviors, learning where they came from, or changing your behaviors, you can reach out. That's where now psychotherapy comes in, okay? That's where psychotherapy comes in, and as a psychologist, I can help you understand your learned behaviors, and all that, and how to change behaviors, and to understand where your behaviors came from. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining in this session. Unfortunately, there's nothing on the chat box that I can respond to, but as days goes by, in case there is anything, I'll be happy, more than glad to do so. However, sometimes we get, carried away with the issues of life, but I'll try. Yeah, yes, this year I'll try to do much better. And so I look forward to seeing you in our next session, which might be an interesting session. I'm looking forward to host a certain guest, okay? And I really hope that it will materialize, because I want us to understand mental health in the Kenyan context, including the laws that are, tied to mental health in Kenya. So I hope that will be possible for our next session. In case it's not, I'll let you know. So for you to know when our next session is and what we'll be talking about, and to have feedback and all those, kindly follow us in our social media platforms, okay? In Facebook, it's Sarah Muhadia Mutsami. In Instagram, it's Sarah Mutsami. In TikTok, it's Sarah Mutsami. In LinkedIn, it's Sarah Mutsami. And here on YouTube, again, it's Sarah Mutsami. So only on Facebook, that's where it's Sarah Muhadia Mutsami. Otherwise, looking forward to interact with you more. Let people, get to know what you listen to as well, and how these sessions have contributed in your life, okay? I really appreciate for your time. You can share the links with your friends and loved ones, and looking forward to see you in the next one, most probably the third week of the month of Feb. It should be that Friday. I hope that we'll be able to do it on a Friday. If not, I'll communicate. But mostly it's the third week of Friday. So that should be 21st of Feb. 21st of Feb 2025. That's when our next session should be, God willing. I pray that we'll be able to do it on that day, 21st of Feb 2025 at 8 p.m. Otherwise, from me to you, have a lovely evening and have a lovely year. Continue looking out for your behaviors and reach out in case of anything. My contact is 0710 269 468. You can replay and you'll get that. And then also my email address is sarahmutsami7@gmail.com, or you can inbox me in all those platforms that I mentioned earlier. Others, bye.